Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Room for Seconds. Today I have an incredible guest, Kim Daly, and she is a franchise consultant and a business coach who has the same passion that I have for what franchising is and the reasons why people should do it. A chance to achieve the American dream. Kim, it's a pleasure to meet you. First time I've actually met you, but a long time fan.
That's so nice. Thank you, Greg. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So real quick, why don't you give everyone just a quick little synopsis of who you are and where you are today, and what are your philosophies on franchising?
I love franchising, just like you said, Greg. Look, franchising changed my life, much like it did yours. So that's why we're so passionate about this industry. But for the last 22 years, I have been helping people explore franchise opportunities as a franchise consultant. So people come to me when they're in some state of transition, either from a corporate job or maybe they're looking for diversification in their real estate portfolio and they don't know what options to explore. That's when Kim Daly enters the picture. I gather all the data, I match them using relationships and knowledge and background, and then I guide them through a discovery process so that they can make an intelligent decision for themselves. And I've been doing that for 22 years. I'm one of the top consultants in the country. And all that means is I'm blessed to help a lot of people say yes to the dream to become a franchisee.
So your specialty, though, if I'm understanding correct, is on the service side more than the restaurant side, correct?
So, okay, you go right to the heart of the question between the two of us, right? Well, yes.
Well, that's where I'm going to have a lot of fun. Is the difference here.
So, yes, we definitely have food in our network, but I just have found that there are easier, faster, better ways to make money for the average person who has no business experience than in food. Of course, most of the people who come to me think that franchising is food. So that's typically where our conversation starts. But then if they get an open mind through my process, I can kind of like weave in, and nobody ever picks food when I teach them the way that I see the world.
Okay.
So say which
interesting. So I'm obviously a diehard food franchise person.
Of course.
Love it. I think it's incredible. But at the same time, I know that the service industry and the service franchise is a hell of a lot more affordable for people to get into. You build a restaurant today, you're looking at a minimum of $250,000 minimum if you find a second gen location, to realistically anywhere between $3, $4, $5 million, depending on the brand. It's a much bigger investment. That does not mean in any way, shape that if you have that money, which way your money is better used to be spent and everything else, because again, there's a ton of multi-unit guys out there that are, closing in on $1 billion net worth because they franchise restaurants. And if you've ever been around a Taco Bell guy, you know that all of them have planes for a reason. So when you match a service person in a service, what attracts you or thinks that a service model is the right way for your guest or for the people you help?
Yep. So let me go back to what you just said, Greg. Like, I'm not taking anything away from the food-based industry. I think all of those things you said are obviously facts. But for the average person who's leaving a corporate job, thinking about business ownership, and they don't have a significant net worth and or maybe the time to go build multiple units, because look, $1 billion in food doesn't happen through 1 or 2 or even 10 units, right? You're talking about an empire there. So the average person who's coming to me may not have that kind of money or that amount of time in their life to go build that. This is their second hurrah, right? So we're looking for an easier, to your point, a lower barrier of entry financially, but then an easier path potentially to that profitability point and to scale. Because, I'm just like in food, even in service, you're going to have to scale what you do to really build wealth. It's never going to be about one team or one truck or one location, right? Just like if you're a real estate investor, it's never going to be about one rooftop. It's about how do I leverage myself and my skill and my team across multiple of whatever it is. So that's where we're starting. So when people come to me, it's not that I'm preferentially picking service. It's that as I listen to their goals, like, what are you trying to build through the business? So that's where I begin with everybody. I'm infinitely more interested in what you want to achieve over the next 3, 5, 10 years than I am what business you think is the one to get you there. I'm the expert. I'll give you the ideas of what can get you there, because many times, Greg, I'm able to bring ideas to people that they never would have thought about. They don't think they're qualified for them. It wouldn't even have been on their radar. But when they start to align what they told me they were interested in and their goals, as they meet these franchisors and go through the process, they start to kind of check the boxes and go, wow. For example, let me give you one. So a direct comparison to food, because I love brick and mortar. I just love brick and mortar wrapped in a service, specifically wrapped in a membership. Because if you're going to take on all of the fixed costs that come with a brick and mortar location, how about we also create a predictable way to create cash flow? So to me, that makes the owner sleep more peacefully at night than having a low ticket item and a lot of fixed expenses. Again, for the average person who's never done this before, the gap is so big, and the time frame in which to build that cash flowing business can be extenuated. When you launch a business that is wrapped in a membership, and we do so many things wrapped in membership. We do dog grooming, beauty services. It's not just fitness, but of course, fitness, anti-aging businesses. There's a plethora of options. And you take on, let's say, $20,000 a month in fixed costs, and you're able to sell a membership. And you're like, okay, so if I have 200 members paying me X number of dollars per month, my fixed expenses are covered. Well, you can start selling membership while you're constructing your store. You can't start selling pizza until your pizza shop is open, right? So this allows, again, that owner to start creating cash flow, lowers the nerves, lowers the risk, so that when they open their doors and they start paying on that SBA loan and start paying on that lease, they have cash flow, not just from their own reserve, but from actual paying customers. And that just, in my experience, that momentum just helps the average person get out of the gate a little more confidently. And that how we think as business owners is what we will attract. And when people get in that fear-based mindset, they get locked into, it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening. What's the only thing that can happen? It won't happen.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. The restaurants have been looking for a way to do membership forever. I mean, That's why you have the wine clubs. That's why you have the beer mugs and places and all that. We all would love to have that revenue. And it's a safety net, and no doubt about it. It's a wonderful philosophy and all that. What doesn't change, you still got to put in all the work to get those members. So just like when I open up a restaurant, you still have to go out and get your customers. You still have to grill a market. You still have to sample. You still have to go out there and give your product to everybody. You still have that same philosophy. So I don't think the two industries are as far apart as what people try to dictate. And in franchising, you're either one or you're the other. There's usually no in between. You don't see people do both. You're either a restaurant guy or you're a service guy. But when you really dig into it, they're the same. Yes, I have a little bit higher cost to get into a restaurant, but I have to go about building my business the same way. And so to me, I think you'll see in the next 3 to 5 years, a group of restaurant operators or a group of service operators that start trending on both sides. And Flynn just sort of did this, and you see Greg Flynn now getting into service-based concepts, which nobody does both. You're either a restaurant guy or that. So I think there's going to start seeing a trend line that changes between us.
I love it. I mean, if someone does set out to build a portfolio, like an alternative investor portfolio, and the goal is to have multiple businesses in there, why not have a little bit of everything, right? The more diversified you are, the safer the whole thing is. So it's not a bias on my part. It's more just that it's easier for the average person with no prior business ownership experience to see a path to profitability with a lower investment, lower fixed costs, which often come in service, especially service that's not taking place in a brick and mortar location, like something you can launch from home, or you go rent a small storage facility, right? Like a California Closets, or a business that may operate out of some sort of executive business suite where the rent is very, very small, right? So you have these a lower cost of entry, lower fixed costs. But yes, to your point, I love that you're pointing that out, that regardless of what you do as a franchisee, you still have to create your own market. Because I don't know if you've tuned into Kim Daly TV anytime recently, but look, I have so many videos talking about how business ownership is always about customer acquisition, because so many people think, I bought a franchise. Why do I have to go like create my market? Isn't it just build it and they come? Right. I literally just made a video about using the words business in a box, turnkey. And then like you see an investment in an item 7 and you see in an earnings claim in item 19, and you put all these things together and it creates this implication that I'm going to open this box. I'm going to invest this money to open the box. I'm going to turn the key and I'm going to make this amount of money out. Right. And I'm like, nothing could be further from the truth. Right. But I get why when you're on the outside and you're not educated, you put those things together in that order and think that must be how it works in franchising. But that's like hardly the way that it actually works. Correct.
Never. And it's the sophistication of who you sell to. And, as you sell the more and more sophisticated individuals, that doesn't become an issue because they know what it takes to build a business. And it's why I think there's so many bad players in our space that sort of take advantage of those items and makes it sound too easy. Hey, build it and all of a sudden you'll be making $100,000 a year. And that doesn't happen. You'll build it, you'll work your butt off, and then maybe you'll make 100,000 a year in that location. And no different than if you're a doctor, or if you're a lawyer, or if you're anything else. And it's gotten so messy that people there's too many things, especially on the Instagram and YouTube and TikTok world right now, that makes people think you can earn money overnight. Right. And no business is actually that way. Yeah. And I tell my kids continually right now, yes, they may look like they're living a large life. 9 out of 10 of them are not, it's not their plane they're getting on. But the other side is they've been doing it for 3, 4, 5 years and they've got a couple million followers. It didn't happen overnight. All right. Everything takes time. Everything
takes time. I 100% agree. I agree. And what really gets people in trouble in the industry is this term semi-absentee, semi-involved. You throw that into like a service arena. And in the conversation I just had, when you hear words like business in a box and turnkey, and then, people wake up in this business trying to maintain a W-2 job, and they're in this franchise and they're struggling, and then they're coming back and, mad at the franchisor, this, you can't do this semi-absent. And so it's kind of like, what is the definition of semi-absentee? And, there is no one definition. It's a very vague definition. It means something different to every single owner. And what's even more complicated, Greg, I think as you progress in business ownership, that term changes its meaning, right? So as you develop into the person who can run a business with 10 to 15 hours a week or 15 to 20 hours a week, whatever that definition is for that particular business, then yeah, maybe you can be semi-absent. But a lot of times from the beginning, there's so much to learn as a business owner, especially if you're a first-time business owner, which again is mostly who I'm catering to, or people who I've been doing this for 22 years. So people who come back after, building 3 or 4 locations of one, and then they come back and say, okay, I'm ready for some diversification, Kim. What can we look at now? I have a few candidates in my pipeline right now who are in exactly that place. That's fun because they're successful in one. They're not ready to stop growing. They have the risk tolerance and to take it, take another chance. And they come back to me, which is I'm very grateful for that, because that's the greatest compliment anybody could ever give me, really. Other than sending me
a recommendation. Yep. Yeah. I'm Greg Majewski, and I've been a multi-unit operator for 26 years. I know how great it feels owning the right franchise brand, but choosing the right franchisor feels even better. At Craveworthy Brands, our hospitality-driven culture sets us apart because we're invested in your success at every single stage of your journey. We're operators alongside you, paving the way forward to give you a head start on greatness. Start your franchise journey at craveworthybrands.com. In the service industry, I know in my world, we always say there's always room for another chicken concept or sub concept or, whatever's out there. We all don't really mean that, but yet we know that there's always going to be competition that's coming in. How in the service industry do you have room for another plumbing concept? Because now you have the multiples that are coming out and competing against each other, or the closet companies. How many of those are out there, and how hard is it to decide, are there too many? Is it's, do I build a team, or am I the one running the truck, or, and so on down the line? I mean, it's just same issues, just different.
Yeah.
Is how I would
So
look at it.
here's what I would say. As a franchise consultant, it really wouldn't be my job to defend like why there's room in the market for another window cleaning business or plumbing business. That would be between the franchisor and the candidate looking at the business. But what I would say is from my own like just business mindset is that oftentimes in service, these are personal relationships, which is a little bit different than a brick and mortar location, where oftentimes the differentiator is the owner. So maybe like let's say that you have a plumbing concept and you want to work exclusively with restoration companies, right? Because every time there's water damage in a home, who gets called in first? The plumber, usually, right? To identify where's the water coming from. So we're going to suck up the water, but we need a plumber to fix the problem. So if you are smart, instead of just being another plumber, running Instagram ads to get the phone to ring, you may go out and you may build personal relationships with several restoration companies. So you're the first guy they think of, right? So I think in service, you can differentiate yourself by that personal relationship, which is different than you do in brick and mortar. But again, it's not really my job as the franchise consultant to ever tell somebody that's what I would do. That's the conversation between the franchisor and the candidate. I'm just the one really guiding that discovery process, helping the candidate to stay open. Because oftentimes, Greg, when they come to the idea of owning a business, they may go, yes, I want to own a plumbing business because it's so recession resistant. That's the first thought. And now they're eager. So I say, okay. And let's say it matches their model and I show them a plumbing concept. Well, as soon as they start talking to the franchisor, what's so interesting is they go from knowing nothing to becoming experts in one call. So now they come back and now they're telling me all of the reasons there's not enough room in the market for another plumber and why they're not qualified, right? So all that is they bumped into what I call the invisible fence, which is your set point of, stepping outside of your comfort zone. And it's designed, our mind is designed to keep us safe, to keep us in a set point. And in order to break through that and step out and take a risk, you have to recognize that's your mind and overcome yourself. And what makes me one of the most successful franchise consultants in the country today is my ability to help people face that kind of fear moment and empower them through it. So I never talk anybody into this, but I do help talk them through it. So they recognize that's a limiting belief versus that's a fact, right? Or, hey, are you assuming that's true or is it actually true? How about before we make it true, we go and we get on some validation calls with franchise owners and see from their perspective if what you think is true there is true. About like, oh, this won't work in my market, or my market's too small, or I don't have the skill necessary, or whatever the limiting belief is. But there's a whole lot of reasons people get excited to own a business and then almost immediately shut themselves down. And what a shame, because most of what they're believing, it's not true. And if they would just keep persevering, just to ask the questions and see what the answers are, you can still make it wrong. That's what I tell people. Look, you can still say no, but just follow through. Take one more step, dare to take one more step and just see. And oftentimes, as they start gathering momentum by asking more questions and understanding that that was a limiting belief or it was an assumption, it's not a fact, their mind gets more and more opened. And now they move from that fear place to a place where they can actually see themselves living the life of a franchisee and stepping forward and saying yes.
Very cool. And we see it all the time with our perspectives. They come in, we try to scare them. I mean, it's part of just my philosophy, scare the crap out of you so you know what you're getting into to make sure you really want to be here. And we say no way more than we say yes. And it's because we want people that truly understand what they're getting into. So I'm assuming I know that's the same sort of philosophy, why people come back and go, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, because it's part of our tactic. We want you to know that it's hard and that nothing comes easy. And some people either take that as a challenge and other people run from it for the first time because they want something easy. And we don't want the person who thinks this is going to be something that they can just open their doors and make money day one. So we're very, very conscious that you understand all the risks that you can possibly have
I
and all
love
the
that.
roadblocks.
I love that. And most of the franchisors that I work with, or if not all of them, are the same exact way. They're very, I don't know that they try to scare people necessarily, but they definitely are upfront that we are looking for a mutually beneficial relationship here. So both parties are interviewing, and at any point, you may decide we're not for you, but at any point, we reserve the right that we decide you're not for us. And people, even when we say it, it's kind of funny because people are shocked when they're the one that gets turned down. But I'm like, we told you. And look, I always say take it as a good sign, because maybe they spared you from investing money in a business or a culture where you just weren't going to be successful. And they could see that from the outset. And so they'd rather just cut everybody's losses, take what you've learned, and we can apply it to a new search, maybe find you a different franchisor where there's a culture where they will want your personality, or they will want your background, or they will feel like you have what it takes to be successful. So it's all just a learning experience. To your point, you don't have to, if you get scared away or you get turned down, you don't have to just walk away. And if you do, it's probably better, right? Because you do need to be a little gritty in order to be successful in starting a franchise. But you can also just take it as, all right, one rejection isn't, every franchisor, it's just one. And the next one may say yes to me.
Yeah. And what people don't, when you get rejected, and one of my best friends got rejected or afraid to do Jimmy John's back in the day. Did not know him. We would have been friends a hell of a lot longer ago if he had not, but he didn't like our process. And he ended up at Firehouse. And it was the right decision for him, because at the time he probably wouldn't have qualified for Jimmy John's, because we would have seen that he was nervous and didn't have this and that. And he found the place that he was supposed to be and went and built a successful business. But that's the idea, is that not everything's right for everybody at that moment. And franchising, there's so many options out there. You have to explore each and every one, and just don't go, oh, it's the hottest thing out there. So I'll knock my friends at Dave's Hot Chicken. They're the hottest brand out there right now, but yet they're not for everybody. I have a brand that gives you open territories and this and that. There's reasons to explore the other options that may fit your style better. And that's the brilliance about franchising. There's always something else to look at. And service, they're popping up every day. I mean, I get an email continually about a new service group that I've never heard of, asking if I wanted to buy this or that territory. So, I mean, you have endless opportunity to find what's perfect for you.
Yes, I love that. And that's exactly why I have a business, Greg, because where do you begin? And sometimes, to your point, you may not have enough money to invest in like the dream business, but that doesn't mean you don't have enough money to invest in the first business, right? So when people come to me, I'm always working on loosening up their mindset, right? It doesn't have to be the dream business. It just has to be the first business. And to your point, maybe you come in, you build that business, you gain some knowledge, you gain some skill, you build it to sell it, you've increased your net worth, you've increased your cash flow, and now you may qualify for that dream business, right? But by then you're probably more experienced and you have different ideas about what the dream business is. And so you might even look for a different business, right? So it's never about like, there's no one size fits all for everybody. Like when I was a personal trainer and people would be like, what's the best way to get in shape? I'd be like, the thing that you're going to do consistently, right? Because it's not about a certain exercise. It's about what you do consistently for a duration of time, right? The same thing in owning a business. There's no one great way to build wealth. There's so many different ways, but how to be successful, or which one is the right one to be successful in, the one that will use the core skills that you bring to the table, right? And not put you in a position where you're betting the farm financially, right? That's the number one mistake most people make, is they overextend themselves financially and they don't have a cushion to fall back on. And then the minute that business needs a little bit more money, they're struggling and they're in that scarcity and lack mentality. And then from that, all they're going to create is more reasons to have fear and feel that scarcity. So I want to try to keep people in a place where you can make a comfortable and affordable investment, but still have a cushion to fall back on. It can be the first business or the next business. It doesn't always have to be the dream business. And of course, there are financing options available too. But this kind of thought process is why I have a business, because I'm going to help people like loosen up their edges. They often come to me thinking, I want to own a franchise and I want it to be this. And I start probing why, and there's not too much depth there. So we say, okay, let's just put that over there for a minute. And let's really back up and say, why do you want to be a business owner? What is this future reality that you're building? What does that look like? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now? Who do you want to become as a result of saying yes to a business today? Now, along that journey, like, what does it look like? So we play all these kind of imagination games where they're going to share with me what they're envisioning. I want to be this kind of owner. I have these kind of skills. And so as I'm carefully listening, that's how I then go into my database and match opportunities to those type of characteristics. And oftentimes people come and let's say you're like, they read my bio and I know you're into fitness. So am I. Like, I'd really love to own a gym. But then we get in this consultation and we start talking about their risk tolerances. And they say, well, I really want something that is like something I can do for 10 to 15 years. I'm a conservative investor. I'm like, well, really then is the gym the right thing for you? Because I think the gym is more trendy. It's a business you do for shorter duration, build it and sell it. It's a different type of investment for a different type of investor, potentially. But as I toss out this idea, if somebody comes back and says, no, like I would morph into that. I'm like, okay, like I'm not here to be the judge and jury of your life. I'm just an active listener and I'm going to take what I'm hearing from you, and I'm going to apply it to my knowledge. And we're going to toss around these ideas until I feel like I heard you, until you feel like you've been heard. And that's the model that I'm going to use to then bring you the 3 to 5 concepts that we can start to explore together and try to find one that fits. So it saves people so much time from like going to entrepreneur, top 500. Where do you begin? Searching the internet. That's even worse, right? Or, hey, my neighbor owns this and is successful. Maybe I should do that. What if you don't have the skill that is like, if that requires you to lead a bunch of people and you've never led people? Maybe you've been an independent contributor and like a sales organization. Well, you have different skill that I can use in a lot of different businesses, right? So not to pigeonhole people into certain things, but to allow them to kind of cast a wider net around lots of options that are out there, and maybe end up in a business that, again, they never thought they would ever qualify for, but they're so happy they found Kim Daly because she showed them this, totally crazy business that their family and friends are like, now, how did you get into that? And that's when I say, that's when you insert Kim Daly. Would you like me to give you her number?
That was good. So we talked before we went live about item 19s, and it sounds like you have a love-hate relationship with them, more towards the not so keen on them. What's the worry when on the service side on an item 19? Because again, I know the restaurant item 19s, service, what's different? What gives you heartburn when you look at those?
Okay, so what I really don't like about an earnings claim in service specifically is that I think it sets a limiting belief about what's possible. So in a brick and mortar location, this doesn't necessarily apply, what I'm about to say. So let's say that you're going into a territory of, say, 50,000 qualified households selling a home cleaning service, okay? So right now, where the franchise is in their growth, they report their earnings like as their average territory volume at 800,000. Okay. And maybe the person's netting 150 grand on that. So, or the EBITDA is 150. So that I think sets up in the candidate's mind, oh, like that's what's possible. No, that's what was possible a year ago when they gathered the data to create this earnings claim. But if you go out into validation with their franchisees now, who are just getting out of training, they may tell you first and second quarter numbers that blow away what franchisees who participated in that earnings claim are making. Because the process of adding more franchisees and graduating them and getting them out into the market should look like growth. If everybody's graduating and just doing the same, I'd be like, I don't think you want to be a part of that franchise, right? Unless the same is like millions of dollars and everybody's like, triumphant and happy. But the whole point of a business is that it's a dynamic, ever-changing environment. So that earnings claim should continue to go up and go up and go up. So what I'm saying to the candidate is, you're going to be a part of the process of that earnings claim going up. So why are you using numbers from the past to make a future investment decision? Use it to get comfortable that you understand like the numbers, because without that earnings claim, legally, the franchisor wouldn't be able to make any claim. Average ticket, average retention, things that help people build out sort of their strategy for their, annual sales. So it's good in that regard, but I don't want it to set up this limiting belief like that's all that's possible, because all it takes is one person to think a little bit outside of that box and go out and in the first 12 months do $1 million. And now people walk away from an earnings claim because people aren't making enough money. And inside the franchise, there are franchisees who are crushing that earnings claim. If you had only taken the time to go validate and meet some of these people, you might have saw a different story. So too many people grab FDDs and think they understand what's going on in a franchise. And I'm like, to me, if this is a dating process, which I always say it's a dating process, and when you work with Kim Daly, it starts with a blind date. Well, the FDD is like the prenup. So why are we spending all this time focusing on a prenup until we find people who we like, who have a culture that inspires us and an opportunity that we feel we might be good at? And we validate with the family, the crazy family of franchisees. Are they happy? Knowing what they know now, would they do it again? If you've done all of that, then you come back and read the FDD to cement this deal, because it's just the glue that legally binds you two together. It doesn't have to represent the end all be all, because it doesn't, of what you're getting when you become a franchisee. That's why.
Okay. Yeah, because we tell everybody, call everybody, talk to every one of our franchisees. You'll hear good, bad, and great. It's just the way it is.
I think that's fair. And I think it is. No matter how good the franchisor is, there's always a bell curve. And I have to spend time helping people understand that. Well, if franchisors were so good, why do people fail? Well, because people have to be accountable to their own goals and dreams. People have to be accountable to their own business. And that's, I have videos on this, what I call the silent killer in franchising. Nobody's talking about it except Kim Daly, but lots of franchisees are thinking it. And it's this thought that you, Mr. Franchisor, are going to make me successful, right? I'm going to open that business and put that name Jimmy John's at the top of the door, and people are just going to flood through the doors, right? And they think of Chick-fil-A and they think, well, that's how that works. And I'm like, that's not how that worked for 30 or 40 years until this very moment, right? So, most of the businesses I'm bringing to people don't have 30 or 40 years of track record. They have 5 to 10 years or sometimes less. So you're part of those pioneering franchisees, blazing that trail, building that brand name recognition, so that one day, if you're all successful, you might wake up and create a brand that has that kind of brand equity. But the majority of us are helping to build. We're not stepping in at that cream, that top level of brand name recognition. And if you are stepping in, what kind of territory are you even getting, right? Like, all the good stuff's already taken in these brands when they reach that kind of a pinnacle, right?
Yep. I mean, Chick-fil-A is a story that will go down in business books forever on what they're doing right now, because it's ridiculous, unheard of, and almost impossible to think it can continue. But yet right now they're proving everyone wrong. COVID was the best thing for that brand that could ever have happened. And that sounds horrible to say, but yet their sales went up $2.5 million or something like that those years. It was
really
sick.
Wow. What do you attribute that to, Greg?
Drive-through and hospitality. You knew that the environment was clean, the food was consistent, and that you're going to get a great experience. And so when people were stuck in their cars, they knew what they were getting, and they had the faith that they were going to get something that was clean and the people were being taken care of. And so I think that was their biggest driver, more so than anything. was that they had already established that hospital clean mentality and that the service was always up here, that when we all needed that human interaction, you went there because you got it.
Interesting. I have two
So,
teenage boys, and Chick-fil-A, we live here in Southern New Hampshire, and Chick-fil-A finally opened. My kids waited in that drive-through line for over 2 hours. I'm like so embarrassed to admit that, but they think it's the coolest thing ever. First of all, I was like laughing, that they even knew that the grand opening day. And they were like, well, yeah, we follow them on Instagram. I'm like, you follow Chick-fil-A on Instagram? Like, truly, this is a different culture, a different time. But
yep.
okay. And then they didn't come back forever. I'm texting. I'm like, where are you? They're like, we're still in line. We're still in line. I'm like, dear Lord, it can't be worth that. They were like, no, it's totally worth it. We were there on the grand opening day.
Yeah. Not worth it, but yet I understand what people do. I don't stand in a line if there's 7 people, you know.
Me either. Not
So,
for Chick-fil-A. Sorry, Chick-fil-A. But
last
my
question.
teenagers will, and all of their friends.
Yeah, my kids too, and it drives me
And
nuts.
Dave's Hot
My,
Chicken, you mentioned that. That's right beside where Chick-fil-A is actually in our town, and that's been a staple in their lives. And Chipotle. Those are
yep.
the three places.
Yeah, that's about right. Teenage boys, maybe an all you can eat item every once in a while if they could find it, I
The
guarantee.
crumble cookie place is also like, that's a secondary place that they frequent. So yeah, this is consistent among the teenagers.
Yep. So, last question. If you had to pick three groupings of service, what are the hottest three areas that people should be looking for right now if they were going to get into service?
So, okay, I'm going to first say, again, as the franchise consultant who brings opportunity to people, I don't follow the trends for certain. I would look at what are the skills you're bringing to me and what are your goals to match. So if I'm answering as a franchise consultant, I would say, I want to know what your goals are and I'll
Right.
curate the list. But if I was stepping back and saying, Kim, in a general franchising conversation, you're like, what are the hot industries in service? Pet services, always recession resistant, booming, never going to stop. People are not stop, myself included. I spend ridiculous amounts of money on dog grooming. And then beauty industry is always recession resistant. Us women, we can spend money and we do not stop, right? So I have certain businesses like your comment about Chick-fil-A during COVID in the beauty industry that defy logic when you see their numbers in 2020 and especially in 2021 as things started to open again and the women kind of like flooded back. Like, for instance, if you're like what? The eyelash places, right? And you think about it, if your entire face was covered by a mask and the only thing you could see is your eyebrows and your eyelashes, well, women who never even paid attention to their eyelashes and eyebrows started doing those services. So that's just one. So I'd say the pet care industry, the beauty industry, always a winner. I mean, I know you probably expect me to say senior care, so that's always in there, but I'm going to leave that one out for this answer. And I'm going to say any product or service for a homeowner. That the homeowner space again, during COVID, I mean, look, we were all trying to find new space, add things to our backyard, build out home offices, closets. We weren't able to move. In good times and bad, what's interesting is that homeowners spend money for different reasons, but they spend money, right? So if the market is tight and you can't sell your home, but you've run out of space, you may be looking to organize your home in a different way to create space, or you may be looking to invest some money so that when the market rebounds, you can get top dollar for your home, right? So home renovation projects like that. And then in a good economy, when people are buying new homes, they're upgrading window treatments, they're adding decks, they're building pools, they're putting outdoor, lighting out there, fences. So all of these things are franchises. So I think those would be three industries: pet care, beauty, and then home services, that regardless of what's happening in the world, people are always going to be spending money.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those. And then obviously senior stuff is right there, but that's
Yeah,
like the
another
given.
one too. If you said, okay, give me my top five, products and services for kids, right? Like parents, I'm a mom. Like my kids wanted, get ready for sport and winter training. I mean, I'm coughing up a lot of money for all of their activities, right? And if they're struggling in school, you hire the tutor. You're laughing because it's true.
100%. 100%.
These are franchises that, again, people don't think of because they don't drive by it necessarily every day and see the name Dave's Hot Chicken or Chick-fil-A. These are personal services that, you have to find because you're looking for it. And then you may even interact with a brand and not even realize it was a franchise.
Very cool. Well, Kim, it was an absolute pleasure. Where can everybody find you and follow you?
Thank you so
much. You want to go ahead and give all of that information
as well. So if you're ready to begin your journey and you want Kim Daly to try to help you, please go to my website, thedailycoach.com, and that's DALY. Now, if you're like, I don't know about this girl, I need to learn a little more, go over to YouTube at kimdaly.tv. I have over 1,000 videos. I turned that camera on in 2020, Greg, and I never shut it off. So it was the greatest thing I ever did. I'm having more fun. I never have to get on an airplane and go host another live event ever in my life. I just sit here in my own home and make videos and meet people every day through my YouTube channel. So it's a great way to learn my personality, to kind of get in sync with the way that I think about exploring a franchise. And if that resonates with you, you can find my contact information there. I can't wait to meet you.
Pleasure. And if you guys are looking for a service industry or any franchising, go ahead and give Kim a follow or a call. She for sure will help you. Kim, thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Hey viewers, thanks again for supporting Room for Seconds. If you found this episode inspiring, interesting, or any bit informative, please hit that little subscribe button down at the bottom so you never miss an episode. In my 26 years in this amazing industry, I've been blessed with incredible mentorship. This show is my way of giving back. Follow me on LinkedIn, search Greg Majewski, on Twitter at Greg_Majewski. If you still have room for more, visit our website at media.craveworthybrands.com. You'll find more videos, shows, notes, blogs, resources, and an easy way to get in touch with the Craveworthy Brands team. I'm your host, Greg Majewski. Thanks again for tuning in to Room for Seconds.